In the year 40 CE, two sisters, one of them a widow whose husband had just been executed by the very empire occupying her homeland, raised an army, drove out a foreign superpower, and ruled a free Vietnam for 3 years. This is the story of the Trưng Sisters. Hello everyone, this is Waisu. Today we're talking about the Trưng Sisters uprising of the year 40 CE, one of the most important rebellions in Vietnamese history. To understand why the Trưng Sisters rose up, we need to rewind a bit. In 208 BCE, the Chinese warlord Tru Da conquered the kingdom of Ô Lạc, ruled by An Duong Vuong, and folded it into Nan Hai Commandery, founding his own kingdom, Nam Viet. Then in 111 BCE, the Han dynasty defeated Nam Viet in turn. From that point on, the Vietnamese homeland became a Han province called Giao Chi, the start of what would become 1,000 years of Chinese domination. Throughout this period, the Han rulers pursued a deliberate policy of cultural assimilation, forcing the Vietnamese to abandon their own clothing and customs in favour of Han ones. In 34 CE, a new governor arrived to rule Giao Chi to Dinh. Under him, Han rule grew harsher than ever. Dinh was corrupt and cruel, piling forced labour and heavy taxes onto the population to fund tribute payments back to the Han court, while squeezing local Vietnamese lords even harder for personal gain. Tensions between the Vietnamese people and their Chinese rulers grew increasingly explosive, and Vietnam's local lords began banding together to resist. At the time, Vietnam was still organised around local lords, hereditary chieftains, who governed their own territories, similar to a feudal system. Among the lords who rose up were twin sisters, Trắc and Trưng Nhi, daughters of a local lord from My Linh, a region stretching from Ba Vai to Tam Dao in what is now the Hanoi and Vinh Phuc area. Trắc had married Thi Sac, the son of a local lord from Chu Dien district. Both sisters were raised with a warrior spirit and a fierce love for their country, and both were determined to drive out the foreign occupiers. Dinh sensed a rebellion brewing early on. In an attempt to intimidate Trắc and break the resistance before it could start, he had her husband Thi Sac executed. It backfired completely. Instead of crushing her spirit, her husband's death only hardened Trac's resolve to avenge both her country and her family. In 39 CE, Trắc and Trưng Nhi gathered their commanders for a formal oath-taking ceremony at Hat Mon on the sandbar of Tru Ong Sa in My Linh. According to the Nam Nu Lu Chronicle, Trac's oath had 4 parts. First, to wash away her country's humiliation. Second, to restore the ancient legacy of the Hung kings. Third, to avenge the wrong done to her husband. And fourth, to see this cause through to the very end. Word of her oath spread rapidly, and patriots from across the region flocked to My Linh to join the cause, among them another remarkable woman warrior of the era, Le Chant. After a period of preparation, in the spring of 40 CE, the Trưng Sisters formally launched their uprising against the Eastern Han dynasty. Their forces struck first at the Han commandant's headquarters in My Linh and seized it. From there, they advanced on Tay Vu district and captured the citadel of Ko Loa. Riding this momentum, they crossed the Hoang and Duong rivers to strike Luy Lao, the seat of Han colonial government, on the banks of the Dao River, in what's now Bac Ninh province. The rebel advance moved so fast that Dinh had no time to organise a defence. Facing the sisters' overwhelming momentum, his officials fled north without putting up a fight. Dinh himself panicked, cut his hair and shaved his beard to disguise himself among his own fleeing soldiers, abandoned his official seal, and ran, eventually escaping to Nan Hai Commandery. The Han general Ma Yuan later reported to Emperor Guangwu that Dinh's eyes had lit up at the sight of money but dropped at the sight of the enemy. The emperor had him imprisoned and punished for his cowardice. The uprising drew support from across the land. Once Luy Lao fell, other strongholds collapsed one after another and surrendered without a fight. The rebellion swept through Kuchan, Nat Nam, Uat Lam, and Hop Pho. Having driven the Han forces out entirely, the Trưng Sisters had reclaimed almost the whole of Vietnamese territory, restoring the country's independence. In recognition, the local lords honoured Trắc as their ruler Queen Trung, with her capital at My Linh. Her sister, Trung Ni, became deputy ruler, while Lashan was named Princess Than Chan and placed in command of the military, organising troop training and strengthening the young nation's defences. The Trưng Sisters' victory would go on to inspire nearly every resistance movement against foreign rule in Vietnamese history that followed. But the peace didn't last. When word reached the Han court that its officials in Giao Chi and Cu Chan had been routed by a Vietnamese army, the emperor was furious and ordered a full-scale counterattack. In the spring of 41 CE, he dispatched his most trusted general, Ma Yuan, along with Lu Long and Duan Ji, to crush Queen Trung's forces and retake the territory. By early 42 CE, Ma Yuan's infantry and Duan Ji's navy had converged at Hop Pho. There Duan Ji fell ill and died, and Lu Long took over command of the fleet. The Han army split into land and naval columns and pushed directly into. Seeing the invasion force approaching, coastal defenders under Lashan's command moved quickly to intercept them, engaging the massive Han fleet head-on at the mouth of the Bac Dang River. But, badly outnumbered, Lashan was forced to withdraw along the Bac Dang, Kinh Thay, and Duong rivers, regrouping her naval forces near Westlake and Hoang Mai on the Red River, before falling back to help defend the capital at My Linh. Having pushed past Lashan, Ma Yuan's two columns united at Lang Bac. When word reached Queen Trung that Ma Yuan's army had arrived, she and her sister led their forces out to meet them in battle. Vastly outnumbered, Vietnamese forces held their ground through several fierce engagements, but eventually, seeing her exhausted, mixed army of men and women unable to withstand the enemy's numbers, Queen Trung was forced to retreat to the caves of Cam Khe, in what is now Ba Vi, near Hanoi, to preserve what remained of her army. Ma Yuan pursued them into Cam Khe, but the resistance fought back fiercely. It wasn't until the 6th month of 43 CE that his forces finally broke through. Both Trưng sisters fell in battle. Lashan withdrew to Mount Lat Sun, but before she could fully fortify her position, Ma Yuan's army caught up with her. Her remaining forces were scattered and overwhelmed. Rather than surrender, Lashan climbed the mountain and took her own life, refusing to fall into enemy hands. She was only 23 years old. Even after the sisters' deaths, resistance continued in pockets across the country, with hundreds of local leaders and rebel bands still fighting Ma Yuan's occupation. By autumn of 44 CE, Ma Yuan had largely crushed what remained of the uprising and withdrew his forces back to China. The uprising held for only a few years before it was crushed, but it was the very first rebellion by the Vietnamese people against Chinese rule during an occupation that would ultimately last 1,000 years. And it was led entirely by women in an era when the Han Empire itself was built on deeply patriarchal values. For that reason, the Trưng Sisters remain one of Vietnam's most enduring national symbols, a symbol of patriotism and unbreakable resistance against foreign invasion, still honoured today. Temples to Queen Trung stand in Hat Mon, in Phuc Tho district near Hanoi, and remarkably, even on the old site of Panyu, once the capital of ancient Nam Viet, and today the Chinese city of Guangzhou, in Guangdong province. You've just watched this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next.